I wasn't really hearing like a message from the left that felt sort of, here is an action plan of how to take your life. When I would hear the left, and bearing in mind I was only hearing the left from the right, so it was like they're talking about really complicated, from my understanding now, because I kind of get it a bit better, but like really nuanced academic understandings of like feminism, white supremacy, all of this stuff. And I'm like, how is this actionable in my life?
They say that changing your mind is the best sign that you have one. I'm joined by Kieren Owen, aka Jimmy the Giant, whose journey from the alt-right pipeline over to the left was not only dramatic, but highly public. What does it take to be able to admit that some of your most dearly held beliefs might be wrong? How has the left failed to connect with people outside of a narrow academic bubble? And is the future of politics a red Ed Davey? We talk about inequality, Britishness, the manosphere, and the Mount Rushmore of rap. And I hope that you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed conducting it. What's your Mount Rushmore of all-time great rappers?
That's a good question. Are you talking like just people I like to listen to, or like skillful lyricists or that kind of shit?
However you want to interpret the question.
Yeah, for me, it would be like Tyler, the Creator. Number one, absolute number one. Because I see it as the whole package, like what they did for the culture, what they did for like people's lives and shit.
Yeah.
And the music, obviously.
I remember when like the Yonkers video came out and like hadn't seen anything like it.
Yeah. You know, I was like such a hipster prick. We're rolling, so it's just like how you do it. Yeah, I was like such a hipster prick. So like when Tyler was big, I like rejected it because it was like, it was cool. Like everyone was like, I remember literally we came back from like summer, and everyone had like Supreme 5 paddles.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm pretty sure I saw a few with tattoos of like the upside down cross, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like and chinos. And then I was like, someone showed me, went to like the computer room, they showed me it's Tyler the Creator, and I was like, and I like ended up 3 years later loving Tyler the Creator.
But like a really reluctant convert.
Yeah. Like literally, I was just such a hipster. I couldn't accept that something all the cool people liked was actually good. And I was the same with Skrillex. There was a few like that where I just didn't want to accept it at the time. But yeah, like Tyler over the time when I'd like reflect and learn everything about like what Odd Future was and like how I did it. And mainly I'd go through the freestyles, like where he was doing all these like hilarious freestyles where he was just like, normally you'd go into like a fire in the booth or something like that, and you would be like the hardest bars. It'd be like a Carla talking about, you know, like the banking crisis and all this stuff. And you're like, oh my God, or it's like some street rapper or something like that. And then Tyler comes in and he's like rapping about having sex with the guy, the presenter and shit. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. But yeah, I loved him. He would be number one.
He's number one.
Then it would be probably,
I can't even remember how many people on Mount Rushmore. Is it 4?
When are they putting Trump on there? That's pretty soon. I think, it would be Tyler number one, and then maybe like a Stormzy, maybe, and like kind of a Carla actually.
Yeah.
I recorded something with a Carla recently. It's like this kind of secret project. I don't even know if I should say it.
He's an incredibly knowledgeable, smart guy.
Yeah, have you had him on?
Yeah, we did an interview with him some years ago. And it was, I think at that time, like Novara, we hadn't existed for that long. And for me, that was the exact like intersection of interest. It was like, you know, colonial history, Marxism, and like
and he's that
London
guy
rappers
in a rap form. Yeah. He's so sick. Like I was streaming and we randomly, I shouldn't have had this bloody drink. I'm going to be burping. We was randomly just going through a Carla freestyles, and I was like, I just was reacting to it on stream. I was like, what the? He's so incredible at like, it's not just. You get someone like what's his name, like a Devlin or something.
I mean, no, like Devlin's like insane.
Yeah, but he was like capturing the vibe of his upbringing or something, but he wasn't explaining like, you know, the background of how it got there from Thatcher and blah blah blah. He weren't doing all that, but he was just like, this is what life's like. But then Carla was like breaking down like when he started going to like the private prison system, that part, it was so hard. And like, it was funny because I started on that shit and then I ended up a right winger. So I don't know, it was in there somewhere. But
and it just like...
Yeah, it just got lost.
See, for me, the all-time best fire in the booth is still, it's got to be the one that Wretch 32 did with Avellino. Mm-hmm. And it was over an XX beat or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, lately death's been feeling ever so close. And it was, I don't know, there was something about like the introspection that he has.
That era of like UK rap, grime and stuff was so good. Like 2000, I would say like 2008 to like 2010, 11. And it like died for that like year or a couple years, it kind of died. And then
came back like 2014, 2015.
Yeah. Did you like that wave? The kind of like...
Yeah, well, the thing is that like I remember being at school, like at secondary school, because I think I'm a couple of years older than you, maybe.
30.
At 33. Oh, no, going to be 33 tomorrow. Entering my Jesus year.
Oh, hell yeah. Big up Jesus.
Big up Jesus. But like, I remember going to school and that was when like Wiley was making music. That was when it was like going from like garage into grime. And so it was speeding up. MCing became a lot more important. And you lost the American accent that garage had.
Shy.
And it was, you go back and listen to So Solid and you're trying to like rap like you're from New York.
It was so funny that, and then go on, so.
But then like you had the sort of like big grime comeback and it was like, I remember like German Whip was everywhere. And then like Skepta releases like Konnichiwa and it's just like it was great. And my old lady opinion, and this is how I know I'm getting old, right? Because I'm like, kids these days, and I feel myself saying it and meaning it, which is like Central C is fun. He's a fun rapper.
I knew you were going to say Central C. I was like, okay, where's he? Yeah.
He's a fun rapper, but I've never once heard him switch flows. And I'm not sure if he can even do it. And I wonder if there is a lack of the training that first wave of grime had. And you can see it when you've got like Dizzy Rascal clashing like Crazy Titch or something.
Yeah.
There is like an athleticism that comes from two people who are really, really good pushing each other further.
Yeah.
And I don't think the kids these days have it because it's all TikTok.
Yeah, well, it's like that. It's like, was it who started? Is it Digger D who started that drill flow? I think it was like he was like the it sounds like a dubstep like bass. It's the same kind of like rhythm. I like, to be honest, I would say the three waves that I quite liked was that original, like I was into like that Devlin, Wiley and all that sort of stuff. The original sort of stuff, and then the Akalas and all that. And then I did really love the JME and that sort of like come back the Stormzy stuff. I really loved all that. And then there was a part of the drill, like I liked drill sort of. It was like kind of enjoyable as a vibe, but it gets very old very quick.
It's very like atmospheric.
Yeah. If you just want to feel like a bad man, like if you're in the gym and you want to just feel like a bad man and lift like 1 kg higher than you normally do, then put on some drill. But like I would say there was a period where they started to reinvent drill, which I liked, and it just got dead pretty quick. But it was that bit where it's like Central C and like there's another fucking guy, and they started to do like old 90s pop samples on a drill beat, because drill was always dark piano, it was always like dark, and then they started to like get all these old samples and it made it brighter, and that was where Central C started. And it was there was another one, but I can't fucking remember his name, but like they did that for a while. It was good, and then I don't know, I've kind of fallen off of UK rap. Like I don't really like, I don't know who's big like right now, to be honest.
Old age, it comes for us all.
Yeah, fuck.
I mean, we're both, I guess, of that first generation where the internet played like quite a big role in our childhoods and our teenage years. I mean, growing up, did that make you feel more connected, that there was a sense of communities out there that you could be a part of? Or did it make you feel more isolated because, you know, you're just like upstairs on the computer?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think I was a pretty sociable kid, so I had like good friends at school. I guess I had this phase of like, I'd be social at school, come home and just hermit. Yeah. And like, but I was hanging out with my mates, but in games and shit. So we would play like RuneScape and we'd play Call of Duty and we'd play like, you know, I was a computer gamer. So I had all the games that all my other mates who had Xbox and PlayStation didn't have. So I would have like online friends as well. But I don't know, to be honest, it felt like you were just hanging out with your mates just online. And I don't think it felt very isolating. I don't remember feeling like a loner, but then I do have friends that did get very like hermity from video gaming and like online culture. So I don't know. I managed to balance it pretty well because I got into parkour, which was an internet sport. Like effectively, if the internet didn't exist, parkour wouldn't exist. Like it pretty much made parkour viral. It was.
What was it like when you were seeing parkour videos for the first time?
So sick. Like I remember like there was what would have been the first one? It was so cool how it like evolved with the internet, because it was like shitty videos that were edited as if they were like Call of Duty montages, and it was like always like Eastern Europeans were just insane. So there'd be like a British community. We would sort of know a little bit of the French and the Germans a little bit. And then every now and then Eastern Europeans, who I'm gonna guess maybe their internet was shitter, their cameras were shitter at that time, early 2000s. They would just occasionally upload these videos in about like, there'd be about 7 pixels you could see. But it'd be a guy doing like a triple backflip off of a building into like a sand pit. And like, yeah, it was so wild. But yeah, I would say the thing that stopped me hermiting was that although parkour was very much like internet driven and based, it was obviously real life. Like you went outside and did it. So it worked really well with the internet. It was like you would hang out with your mates all day, film your shit, and then go home and then like post the videos, and then like you'd be on the online community for it. So it felt like I don't know, it was a nice
It was like the
compliment.
best bit of the internet.
Yeah. It was like a compliment to your life. Whereas I suppose, and I don't know, maybe I'm sounding old man, but I suppose now it is the life for a lot of young people. Maybe that is their whole thing, is around the internet. For us, it was always like this additional thing to like when I was in parkour. But I do see that gaming wasn't like that. Gaming was like the internet is everything kind of.
Also, I forgot to say, Jimmy the Giant, welcome to Downstream.
Oh yeah.
But we like went straight into it. I was like, Mount Rushmore, tell me now.
You got me on gaming, you got me on rap, and you got me on parkour in 2 minutes. That was impressive.
Great.
I've lost everything I've got to talk about now.
Yeah, I've completely forgotten what the rest of my questions are. I'm like, politics, maybe. But I guess I am interested. You know, you've talked a lot about architecture, and you've talked a lot about the built environment and you know, housing in the UK. Like, what came first, your interest in architecture or your interest in parkour? Like, did one lead you to the other?
They're so interconnected, yeah. Because it was like when we were doing parkour, brutalism was like the coolest thing on earth. Like we loved it. Like we loved the aesthetic of it. We loved like when you'd film a video in a brutalist estate, you would look really cool. It would like really work together. And again, when like parkour evolved with music, as
you
like
can't
rap.
do it like off an Edwardian villa.
No, yeah, you really can't. So what's funny, I don't know if you want to know about parkour that much.
Yeah, go on.
But like, so you had London, is obviously there was a lot of council estates and a lot of that. And they were known for parkour. Like parkour first came to London from like France sort of thing. And it got popular. But the people who like changed the world of parkour were from Cambridge, which all their architecture is like old, beautiful, like Gothic and all that sort of stuff. What made them get so much better than everyone else is because of their shit architecture. Because they couldn't, like, if you were to jump on a big concrete slabby brutalist wall, you could like land all your flat feet on it, you could slide and you'd be all right. Whereas if you were to land on like a really thin piece of like old material and you landed badly, you'd break it or you'd break yourself. So like architecture and parkour really like lent themselves. So actually Cambridge kind of like leveled up the sport, the skill. But I used to really love like estates, and it was so funny because like...
What was it that you loved about them?
It was just, as a parkour person, it was like, it was the public, like you didn't realize this was what it was, but it was the fact it was public space, and it was like free. It wasn't near cars, roads or anything like that. And London was the Mecca. You would come to London. It was like Vauxhall Estate, Elephant and Castle Estate, which is
the Haygate, right?
Estate. Yeah, that's no longer, that got knocked down, innit?
Yeah.
And there's a few others. I can't think off the top of my head, but they were just these whole estate. Archway is another estate. I don't know if that's still there, but it's like these big ass estates that were kind of away from the roads. So you and your mates would be like 10, 15, maybe 20. On a big jam, it'd be hundreds. You could all go there and you didn't have to pay a penny other than your train journey there. And you could just hang out for like all day. We'd be there for 15 hours. And it was sick. That was like all we did. And so for us, it was like this, although it could be rough, you would go to Haygate Estate and it would be rough. Like there would be like gangsters, there would be people on drugs and stuff. It never bothered us, but like you could feel if you were there with like one or two others, maybe it wouldn't feel so good. But because I guess probably what we were experiencing was probably what they experienced back when it was first made, when it was like 50s, 60s, it was fresh. Well,
like a sense of like wonder.
Yeah. And it was like that. It was like, it was just this, there were like these, whole theme parks because they're enclosed. It was awesome. As I like got out of doing parkour, and I started to experience the world from a perspective of being married, and like you want to take your wife places and impress her, you don't take her to the Haygate Estate. You take her to like, I don't know.
That's where I went wrong. I took my husband to City Radios in Marseille. I was going to be like, it's great, it's incredible architecture like Le Corbusier, and he was like, could we have an Aperol Spritz and Cours Julien instead?
Yeah, hell yeah. I should have taken a Haygate. But yeah, you would go to like, as well, my wife being Ukrainian, she wanted to see the London that was like Harry Potter. And so I took her to Cambridge and take her like, but like you show all of this stuff, and I'm like seeing it through her eyes a little bit, because my original thing of going to London was literally parkour. I used to always say I hated London because London was, whilst it was good for parkour.
I'm going to take my fucking earrings out.
yeah. Whilst London was good for parkour, all we used it for was the train system to get there and go. So I didn't like walking down the streets and shit because I didn't care about it. But yeah, as you get older and you start seeing the world and you use it differently, I started to like really marvel at like the old architecture. I was like, wow, it's beautiful. And then yeah, I had this little phase of making architecture videos. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to like, you know, I know you know this, but housing's so central to inequality in this country. Do you think that maybe, whether it's like brutalism or like the big Victorian housing developments where you've got like rows and rows of terrace houses, do you think we've sort of like lost an element of that, like that dream of what housing for the working class can be?
The sad bit is like our imagination now of council housing, because of the way we allowed it to get, is now it's like they're shitholes. Like that's what you would say, but it's a shithole. You're like, that's so sad, because it was such a like pivotal moment in British history, and it shaped the middle class, it shaped the working class, the aspirational, all this sort of lot. It gave a stability in a community, and it's like a beautiful thing, but we let it get so bad. And this is what they do, to be honest, is all the beautiful fucking public achievements we had, they let them get bad and underfund it, and then they go, look how shit it is. And it's so like bad. Like people talk about the NHS and they're like, the NHS is shit. Like, that is disgusting to say that. It's like the most incredible thing that we've ever achieved as a human, like, as British people, I suppose. But because we underfunded it for fucking 14 years, people's memory of all of that period before it has just evaporated. Like you look at waiting times, if you look at the chart, 10 years ago, we actually had a problem that people were being seen too quickly.
I remember what it used to be like when you could get a GP appointment the same day.
That people didn't like that. They were like, we feel like we're being rushed through. We feel like our service isn't like, this is what they were talking about. They were like, yeah, we feel like we're being rushed. We're not being able to be like talked to and have a nice chit chat. That was like 14 years ago, and people's memory just evaporates. They think,
I save up my health problems so I could get them all done at once. I'm like, okay, there's an ankle, there's a whole like, you know, cyst thing going on.
Now they say you're not allowed to, like, you can't stack them. So like you have to do separate appointments. I had it when I was looking the other day. But it's like, yeah, it's so sad because so quickly people are like, look, it's impossible, you know, a public run. What are we talking about? We can't do this. It's like, we just did it forever. And all of a sudden people, it annoys me actually. It does annoy me. And that's the kind of thing. Right-wingers are basically, their purview of the world is this. It's what's happening right here with no context. You don't see that the NHS is bad because of reasons. It's because right now it's bad, so it's bad, and therefore we have to, like, I don't know, Nigel Farage would say probably switch to like a insurance model or something like that.
We're gonna get to Farage later, but like, I mean, just but I mean, just like sticking with you know, what it was like for you growing up. Like, what was the conversation about politics like in your house? Like, what do you remember your parents talking about, the people around you?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Like, my dad was always like, my dad, if he discovered the internet, would become a right winger, but he's not because he didn't get like sidelined, but he has this sort of general hatred for like very powerful, corrupt sort of things. So he is sort of basically, I don't know what you'd call it. I guess just like in a sense a populist. He's not deeply like well read. He wouldn't support a Nigel Farage or something. But if he was like a Facebook person, he would be the type of person that could have ended up. But yeah, I would say my dad just would always be pissed at like anything political. Like it was always shit's getting worse. They're doing this. It's bad. The potholes, all of this. Like it was always that. So he kind of was just a bit anti it all. Like he didn't see much trust in the system. My mum, I don't know. I don't really know her political views that much. She sort of has a bit of, she's kind of empathetic to like the problems of society. But I think, I don't know where they vote. I would guess for a period of time, probably Conservative. I think they stopped voting Conservative.
I mean, when it comes to that, that sense of like, I don't know, the people in power are in it for themselves. They're corrupt.
That's like what my dad would be saying.
Overseeing managed decline. I mean, it sounds kind of similar to where you've ended up now. Maybe not the like right wing element that you've suggested, but certainly that skepticism.
It's true, isn't it? It is true, and that's what the right wingers do. They take truthful feelings and truthful analysis and then pervert it. They like take the core feelings that you have, which are valid feelings, to be pissed off at the system, to be upset that your town looks shitty now. That's a fair feeling to have. But then they say, oh, the reason being is because of the migrants or, whatever. So it's like, that's how it's clever. It's so clever, but so, perverse, really, isn't it? Because it's a true, honest feeling that's fine to have, and you should have that feeling. But then they just give you, because you would have to fucking sit and research all day to figure out how shit's happened. They just give you a very simple answer. And no one really, I guess, questions it, or like they don't do a good enough job in like the mainstream to like push back on it in a.
Do you think that's because maybe like the left and the centre left can be a bit scared of anger, so they want to like tamp it down and make it something which is more polite and managerial?
Yeah, how do you mean kind of like?
I mean, so I think about this when I think about the Green Party, right? Which is, there are lots of good policies, lots of great people, but they're very uncomfortable with anger.
Right.
Very uncomfortable with anger. And when they come across someone who's like, I'm furious about the Labour Party. I feel betrayed by them. I think they're in it for themselves. I think they've betrayed their values. Like, and I've heard this from people in the Greens.
They're a bit scared to take words like that.
Yeah, they'll go, but can't we just agree?
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. I've not thought about it. But it's kind of like, I think lefties kind of have an understanding of how, like, the power of language, the power, like, history of this kind of rhetoric, where it leads and stuff like that. So maybe it's like sometimes a bit almost they know too much, so they may be a bit cautious. Yeah, it's a fair point. And that can kind of like, hold them back in a way. I've not really thought about it, but it is I would say there's something to that.
It'll be in your next video.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the development of your own politics, like, what were the issues, what were the ideas that you were engaging with when you were younger, maybe when you were a teenager?
Just because I kind of wanted to just talk on that thing you were saying. I just had a thought and it kind of escaped me. About like the being scared of like that. Yeah. Sorry, I just had you maybe think something. But
no, go for it. It's the best bit of these conversations.
But like, this is what I try and do, and I guess perhaps because I've not got an academic background, and maybe I'm making a mistake, but I try and like take populist type feelings or even like talking points and just spin it to like left-wing shit, basically. Like, I am not anti being pro-British at all, but I try and change what that means. Like, if you say, I love Britain, I'm a British patriot, great. You fucking love your country, you love the people around you, you love your community, and you want to help everyone in your community. My definition of being like British and pro-British is being in the people around me, like the country. To someone else, it's like white people, or it's like people with this accent, or like whatever. And so like I try and just take those things and redirect it. I basically try and do what right-wingers do to us, but do it back at them. So it's like, take the feelings of anger. That's where you were saying like the Green Party, maybe they need to take those feelings and just fucking direct it to the actual problem. And I wouldn't say I guess there is a risk that it can become radical. And but what is the alternative is to allow the other side to be radical and go in a very dark direction. Or we take and play some of those games and hope that we can manage the, I don't know like what is the answer, but I always try and do that. Like I always say I'm super pro-British. I'm pro-British, and I would be like, I would personally love to see us not make our towns completely cater to like supermarkets that are like multinational companies. I would much rather we had like farmers markets that are all local traders and they could all come and like maybe we subsidize it, maybe we help them. And then it's local, it's British, it's communal. I love that shit. There's nothing wrong with that for me. But I suppose some people on the left maybe would be a little bit scared of like just even because it sounds nationalistic, and that's like perhaps there's a problem there. But I don't want it to be that. Like,
I mean, but when you talk about like pro-British, like I entirely agree with you. I love a farmer's market.
That's what I'm saying.
I love a farmer's market. Like the most like woo hippie thing that I'll buy into is like unpasteurized milk. Like I'll take.
Oh my god, you're on that.
No, I mean I tasted it once, and it was like unhomogenized unpasteurized milk, and I was like, maybe I should just get botulism. Like maybe that's fine.
It's worth it.
I was like, it's delicious. It's so creamy. But like, I think maybe the bit that people disagree with, and I wonder what you think about this, is does it mean that you've got to whitewash and rose tint our history?
But that's what I don't think. Like that's a good point. So what I try and say is like being proud of like what historic Britishness is just purely how you look at it. Like, I look at the battle for workers' rights and our push towards a more equal society. That is a thing that happened here. Like we had, workers' rights, trade union, all that sort of stuff, the labor movement. We kind of spearheaded it, and we were kind of unfortunately forced to because, that was the world that was created for us. But there's a sort of there's two stories of Britain, which is the powerful type, all the fucked up shit, and then there's people that actually tried to stop that and fight back about it, like the women's rights movements, the anti-slavery movement. All of that was a section of the people that fought against the nasty forces.
So is it about tracing a line through that, I guess, you pick out the stories and the events and the people which embody the kind of politics you want, the one of solidarity, pushing back against power.
Yeah, and picking those figures like a Clement Attlee or like faces of those eras or movements and groups of people that push towards something good. And obviously back then, like there's probably problems with the trade unions. They probably weren't like super inclusive or whatever, but they started the journey towards where we're trying to take it.
Have you ever heard of the Lancashire cotton famine?
No.
So it's an incredible moment in our history, and I didn't find out about it until a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, like this is actually a story that people need to hear. So the Lancashire cotton famine happened, the American Civil War was raging, and because of organising that was happening within the churches in Lancashire, the workers in the cotton mills said, we're not going to work on slave-picked cotton. We're going to uphold the embargo.
Damn.
And what that meant was they couldn't work, they couldn't earn a living, and people starved. There was rioting, there was disturbances because these white, English, working class people were bearing the cost on their own bodies.
Damn, that's sick.
Which is incredible, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be so much hard. Like, who was it talking about? It was like how they managed to achieve, let's say the post-war consensus, how they, in their scenarios, in their life, like their living standards, managed to achieve it. Like, we all feel powerless to someone like an Elon Musk and that, but at least we got the fucking internet. At least we got, we eat, most of us eat okay, so we're not like skinny and struggling, and we don't live in slums as much. We have, and those lot did it from the fucking ghetto, like the slums, and they managed to like organize together. They had to hand out bits of paper to each other to explain their theories. We have like, I don't know, like there is some way of looking at the past and being completely okay with saying like, we did some absolute fucked up shit and we should 100% be accountable for that. We need to try, and even the way the world works now still is based on that dynamic. Like that's all like that extractive model that is still there. But there has always been that other story of people trying to undo that and change it and fight back against that. And I'm proud of that.
Does that make you feel optimistic when you reflect on it?
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm just thinking like, man, if they did it in those scenarios, we're fucking easy for us. I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic, but...
I mean, you mentioned this already, and this might be what people know you from as well, is that part of your political journey was spent on the alt-right. What was it about the alt-right that attracted you? What maybe made you vulnerable or susceptible to some of these ideas? Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, like to be clear, I would never say I was alt-right. I was like, that's why I write pipeline, because I was like in that way. So I was definitely right-wing. I'd say I landed on like being a libertarian, like right conservative, socially a little bit conservative. I'd be that sort of thing where you'd be like, I'm totally okay with gays, LGBT, but there is a bit of a problem with the trans thing. Like you'd be like, trans people are okay, but the
ideology.
The ideology, the agenda, the trans agenda, all this shit. And that's how they do it a little bit, because they don't want to present the extreme shit just straight away. And to be fair, it progressed. It got worse. Like where the right was in like 2016 is different to now. It's gone more mask off. But for me, it was a lot like, I really hate to say it, but it was sort of aesthetics. It was like the bros were right wing. I can't, just to completely simplify it, it was like dudes who were sort of like me were right wing. And being a young 20-year-old lad who didn't go to uni and was like trying to make my own thing, like I was setting up businesses, I was like making clothing brands and like made a vegan food store. Would you believe I was a vegan right winger? Which is mad. But like, yeah, it just felt like the people who were talking to that, which was the get up and go get it sort of shit, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, they were obviously all right wing. And I wasn't really, maybe it existed, but I wasn't really hearing like a message from the left that felt sort of here is an action plan of how to take your life.
Yeah, agency.
Yeah, there was none of that. Like, at least from what I was aware of, there was no like notable left-wing person who would be like, look, this is the scenario we're in. It's fucked. This is what we can do. This is how we can organize. This is how we can move forward as a people. It was sort of like when I would hear the left, and bearing in mind I was only hearing the left from the right. So it was like they're talking about really complicated, from my understanding now, because I kind of get it a bit better, but like really nuanced academic understandings of like feminism, white supremacy, all of this stuff. And I'm like, how is this shit actionable in my life?
Was it mostly like on the internet? So like the internet was like the shop window of politics.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Because that's what annoys me is like now I look into it, I'm like, man, they've made some fucking good points. And I just wrote it off entirely because when you're a young 20-year-old, you don't give a shit about that. You just want to fucking figure out how you're going to ever afford a house or how you're ever going to make some money. And like thinking about the nuances of white supremacy when I'm sat there trying to work out how to make some money is probably not that conducive to like a good future for me. So
Did you feel like people were like effectively saying you've got privilege and you're like, where? Like I'm trying to have some privilege. Like that's what I'm working towards.
That was one of the things I felt like the right wing told me to think. Like there was an element of that. Because I grew up like my parents weren't, they were sort of like, I don't really know how you'd put it. They own their own house now. We were never like the first people to get the PlayStation or anything, but they sent me to a private school. They got all their inheritance and they put me to go to a private school when I was like 13, 14. So I had a weird middle upbringing of going to public schools. My dad was like a carpet fitter, mum like a dinner lady kind of thing. Effectively, I was middle class in the sense that I had stability. And I think stability is like that key feeling. So I wouldn't say I was hard up because I never struggled. Like there was never a problem. We weren't getting the newest stuff. I wasn't wearing the Nikes and that, but like we never had to struggle and my parents didn't have to kick me out for quite a while. So I would always say that stability fundamentally makes my life different from lots of other people and was a massive advantage and a massive privilege. But I wasn't looking at my life like, from the fact that I'm a white guy, that I had some inherent privilege. I wasn't aware of that. And so then when I'm looking and seeing how hard I'm working at life and, you know, I'm doing everything and whatever. Perhaps when Jordan Peterson tells me that the left are saying that you're a privileged man, but you're working really hard. Yeah, it probably like falls on deaf ears a little bit. Like it wasn't a compelling thing to listen to.
I wonder what you think about this, which is I think that I've been trying to like turn the privilege idea around and around in my head and go like, because it doesn't feel quite right, like the right word. Like maybe it describes, you know, my husband's a white English guy. It's good for describing what doesn't impact him. Maybe it's good at describing, you know, if he's in a head-to-head, like, you know, job application contest with someone else, like, you know, how that might benefit him. But if we were talking about, you know, say like a white person who lives in like, I don't know, let's say Blackburn or something, and like they're dealing with like deprivation, lack of opportunity, lack of infrastructure. Like for me to come along with my like London self and being like white privilege, like it just seems like it wouldn't be speaking to their life.
But I don't think you're necessarily speaking, like when you're talking about that and thinking about them, the academics that write about that, they're not looking at the geezer in Blackpool. They're looking at a wider, zoomed out look on the whole of society and how on average things pan out because of different, literally because of your skin color. Like, and they are right. They are completely right on those things. But if you're listening to a right winger tell you what they're trying to tell you about it, and they're constantly focusing on that topic, they're trying to say that because you're white, they bastardize it so quickly. Because obviously that same left-wing academic would be like, yeah, class is a massive factor. But because the right really wanted to ham and focus in on that, because they knew it was divisive to be like, oh, look, black people have it even worse than you. It's like, it was a good tactic of them to make it divisive. And I would say there's probably some people on the left that like played into it, like they would only talk about that and it probably didn't help. But
maybe there was an overcorrection, like race wasn't visible and then it was becoming visible and you're like,
yeah. And it's like, it's a topic, and this is the thing about a lot of these ideas, they're very complicated and you need to be properly taught about them. You can't watch a 10-minute YouTube, you can't watch Jordan Peterson on PragerU and think you now understand feminism. It's like you need to like actually understand it, and they're so easy to bastardize. Like you can easily like be really reductive on what someone that's wrote some academic paper that's this thick and then you turn it into a 10-minute PragerU video. It's like you can obviously make it sound as bad as possible, but like their focus isn't trying to say that the guy in Blackpool, he's better off than someone because he's white or something. And that's the thing. It was really like, I suppose, I don't know, if I was to criticize the left or something, I suppose I didn't hear a lot of people talking about like class issues. They weren't going like, look, we understand everyone has it fucked. We all have it fucked. And this should be the main focus, is how fucked everything is. Black people, women, they also have it more fucked. We should work together with them to try and help them. And all of us work together to like have a better outcome. So maybe I didn't hear much of a class voice, probably because that isn't the one that was like, well, I just really think that the right wingers didn't really want to engage with that. So the people that were talking about that stuff probably weren't getting the same. Yeah, they're getting ignored. So, but that's it, because like for me, I really like focus heavily on class. I think it's so important. And then you understand within class, there's even other, like even within that, there are people that have it even worse than you because of that. But it's much better strategically and politically to understand you're all collectively together in a mission to try and like improve all living standards.
I mean, does it always work out, I guess, like in a simple, like, you know, you add these identity characteristics together and then you can tell who's got more power, more privilege? Because I was thinking about this with regards to, I guess, like people who like live in the area that I live, which is Tottenham, which is, you'll have families where, you know, the girls go on to further and higher education and the boys don't. And they're, you know, both like, you know, from an ethnic minority working class family, but there seems to be an element of social mobility which is available to girls going through the education system that isn't for boys, because of the way in which boys get criminalized, the way in which they get like treated by police, the impact of like I guess like, you know, serious youth violence on their lives, stuff like that. If I was looking at that just through a kind of like male privilege lens, I wouldn't be able to grapple with how that's impacting that particular community.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because I do think as an analysis it is more a broader, like you're looking at broad trends and broad patterns, and there will be individual cases where it doesn't pan out the same way. And that's, I don't know, like I do think from a messaging perspective, it's just I don't know, I think that's why a lot of us are starting to talk about class more, because it's just more, at least from the game of politics, when it comes to like, you know, actual academic understanding of these topics, it probably is much more nuanced than just class. Like I've heard people criticize that just class perspective before, but I think from the position where our opposition, at least in America, is Donald Trump and here is Farage, it's going that way, trying to get into the nitty and gritty of these academic understandings and very complicated structures is probably not the play in order for us to win anything at the moment. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong, but I just think, Is
it about, to like put it very, very crudely, like the gap between, you know, your gone to uni, ethnic minority, lives in London, and white guy lives in Blackpool, didn't go to uni, that gap between you two is a lot smaller than the gap between guy in Blackpool and Elon Musk and Nigel Farage.
That's it. And that's like one of the things I was quite optimistic about, was like that stat where it said something along the lines of like middle class people identify more as working class. And a lot of people laugh. They're like, you lot don't know shit. It's like, no, that's fucking a good thing, because it means like people start to understand that we actually are affected more. A decision that affects Michael affects like Barry as well. Like the same thing that a politician does will benefit the very wealthy person, whilst our lives get worse, both the middle class and the working class. And it's like that connection, when they can see that we're affected by the same things more and more as that gap gets closer. I feel like inequality is reducing when it comes to middle class and working class. It's getting worse on the other end. But as that happens, people start realizing that actually the structure is flawed. Because I think one of like, I don't know, like, I'm not super well read on like theory and stuff, but I know a lot of people say like the idea of having like, what do they call it? The petty bourgeois. And all that sort of shit. And it's like, that's quite good for keeping that system, because it means that these people won't unify with the working class people because they benefit slightly from the system. But if they're starting to lose their benefits, then that brings a political opportunity for them to like work together and identify together.
There's a guy called Dan Evans who wrote a book called Nation of Shopkeepers.
I want to read that.
It's so good. It's so good. Like I disagree with him on some stuff, but I think that it's one of those things where it's like, even where I disagree with you, I'm so fucking glad you wrote this.
Cool.
Like, and what he says is that you've got this petty bourgeois layer, right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And what he says, which is interesting, is that there's sort of two sides to it, which is you've got your traditional like plumbers doing well for themselves, electricians, self-employed, like they've got a lot of autonomy and control over their working lives. You know, they they earn as much as they're able to work, right? There's
Yeah,
a connection between how hard you work and how much you earn when you've got that kind of job. And then you've got downwardly mobile graduates who've like, you
yeah,
own your laptop, but nothing else. And you do your tippy-tappy freelance copy
yeah.
editing job. And what he says is that, like, you know, this layer of petit bourgeois, like, you've got these two groups which are like similar in class status, but totally different in outlook.
Outcome. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, was he on here or was it?
Yeah.
I think I might have seen that one. I think I was playing Rocket League at the time. Yeah, I seem to specifically remember.
But it's like, how do you bring together people whose cultural outlook is so different? Like the world you live in, the place you live, your habits, your, you know, the things you like, the things you dislike. It's like on opposite ends of the spectrum, even though economics has brought you like this.
Yeah. I wonder how they did it in the past. Is it's like, yeah, it is true. Like when I just think as you start seeing, like, I think one of the things that opened my mind, like opened my eyes to a little bit was when I was on the Trull podcast and I would look at them as like middle-class white women. That's completely fine. I would see that and I was like, they're probably well off. They're probably doing really well. I'm sure their lives are fine. But they were complaining about some prices about something. They're like, yeah, the price is insane. And I'm looking at it in my head, my biases would tell me they don't worry about money. There's nothing like that in their lives. And I was thinking, the more you see that, the more you see like middle-class people worrying about money and just feeling like one of the things, to be honest, it's the irony of like, they always say as you get more successful, as you make more money, you become more right-wing, or as you get older, but it's kind of the same thing, I suppose. But for me, it was the total opposite. Like when I sort of achieved like, I guess, some form of success and like did well, made decent money, but like not caked, but just doing okay. I was like, my life should feel much easier than it does. Yeah. Like realistically, I shouldn't have like people are making less than me, but like 20, 30 odd years ago, they were living very comfortable lives. But now I'm like, you know, I did spend a lot this year because I bought a house and got married and stuff like
Mashallah, brother.
Yeah, exactly. As the Ukrainians would say. But yeah, like I kind of just realized like I'm getting pissed off at bills. When the ground rent, I got a bill the other day, it was £2,000 just, I own my place, but I have to pay £2,000 a month. £2,000 a year, sorry.
Oh, for like the leaseholder thingy.
And I'm like, and then when I drive to London, I get a congestion charge, and I'll be an idiot and forget to renew the auto pay and blah blah blah. I get fined. It's like 160 quid, and I'm like feeling this constant pressure of just bills, fines. And I'm like, I shouldn't be thinking about money. Like I know it sounds really arrogant, but like I shouldn't realistically have to think about it that much, and that probably is not like for keeping the sort of status quo type politics. That's probably not good, because if working class people don't feel like they get some inherent privilege from being working, sorry, did I say it right? If middle class people don't feel like they get some inherent better life from their position, they're going to start questioning the system. They're like, we're meant to. I know it's mad. It shouldn't be so elitist like that. But like, if they start going, well, it's not meant to be tough for us. That's probably like politically quite a good thing for a left wing movement. Like,
was it?
That's where you get that. When it comes back to your question, it's like that's how you probably make that solidarity.
There's a famous quote which is, revolutions happen when lowering standards meet rising expectations. So it's sort of like this like upwards downwards like motion.
God, maybe
and,
that's
like,
what happened to me. Fuck, I got radicalized by that curve.
You've been radicalized by the curve. I mean, like, what would you have described when you were in that alt-right pipeline? What would you have described as the problems with society at that point? Is it like remarkably different from what you're saying now?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely thought feminism was like some deep problem. It's gone too far.
In what ways? In what ways had it gone too far for, like, 2016?
You know what
Kieren?
it really was? Again, it's a lot of it's aesthetics. It's like what really used to trigger me was like watching a film and it was some really poorly written like strong woman lead. It just pissed me the fuck off.
And she always like, I had 10 brothers. Do you know what I mean? And that's why she can fight. It's like, what?
Yeah, I remember getting raged at. We tried to watch Lord of the Rings, and you got to think like we grew up in the 2000s. Lord of the Rings is like so sacred.
Oh yeah,
to us.
yeah.
It'd be like rewriting the Bible and changing like Jesus. And so they like, I know it wasn't a rewrite, but it was like that's the franchise. And the first scene is this woman comes in and just fucking clarts everyone. And like turns to the guys and they're all struggling. I'm like, all right, this is what you're gonna do with the franchise.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't like this is where like I guess I would say I always sort of distinguish like the liberal sort of media as being different to like a leftist approach, because the leftists would look at that and be like, it's a terribly written character.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the inherent fact that she's a woman.
It's
like,
also
we all love
she's
Kill
really
Bill.
strong, but still incredibly thin at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Like-
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, she wasn't like, what was the, we all loved Kill Bill, and we all loved, who was the one in Game of Thrones? The like big,
Brienne.
Brienne, we all loved Brienne. No one complained about Brienne because it made sense. The character made sense. And writing in Hollywood did get worse. It has got worse. And like...
It's like, I don't think this woman can support the weight of her own teeth in her head,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
let alone like a broadsword.
Yeah, it was mad. And it was like, because all of this is happening in amongst this kind of like grifty right wing pointing out the problems of this, it just adds another layer of like stuff you're seeing in your life through culture is being affected by this woke thing. And it was like, yeah, I remember that used to piss me off. Every video game, everything was like, but really what you're being pissed off at is poorly written characters. And yeah, and like it would annoy me. And it was annoying. Like there are films, Barbie was an interesting one because Barbie came out probably when did Barbie come out?
2023, maybe?
Okay, so I think I was on this tail end of being a right winger. So I was kind of realizing like I don't think I believe this sort of stuff. I think I was definitely critical of like capitalism by this point, I think. And I remember that came out and I didn't want to watch it because I was like, it's just gonna piss me off. It's gonna be so bad. Like I've just figured it'd be another one of them ones. And then I remember my missus, she was like, oh, it's a really good film. And then time passed and then I watched it. And I was like, that was a fucking good film. It was so well written because it told the same things that I guess some people are trying to tell with these other ones, but it done it well. It just explained it well. It like showed the perspective of it was the gender opposite, wasn't it? It was like if Ryan Gosling's character Ken, he was like how I suppose a woman would have felt in a really what's the word, like exaggerated form of it. And it was like clearly exaggerated. Like it was tongue in cheek. So it was exaggerated enough that it was like self-aware that we're being over the top. But then when he went into the real world, it was the scene that was quite powerful for me was when he, I think, come up the elevator and he sees the world's run by men through like this short montage of like, the face on the dollar bill is a man. The guy who did this thing, the hero, the first steps on the moon was a man. And it just made him feel fucking good. And I was like, damn, I never really like...
But you know what? So I thought Barbie it was a really fun film. I had lots of fun like going to see it. I really didn't like the like quote unquote like feminism elements of it. Like I didn't like it. But the bit which I loved was that it was a great portrait and look at like actually, you know, in this kind of very flat, reductive, like you go girl, like feminism, like there's no space for like male identity. And then when that happens, no wonder patriarchy looks really, really good.
Yeah.
Like I thought, and maybe it's just because Ryan Gosling was so fucking funny.
Yeah, he was hilarious.
That like, I was just like captivated by like that story. Whereas like the Margot Robbie being like, I'm going to the gynecologist. I was like, well.
Yeah, maybe it was a bit hammy on some bits. But I felt like, to me as someone who, bearing in mind the idea of watching Barbie when it came out was like, I would have felt effeminized by just thinking of watching it. So when I watched it, I was like, there was some things that just made me like a little bit aware of. I was like, that is kind of interesting. But yeah, for me, like that sort of like you asked like when I was on the right, what was I bothered about and stuff like that. It felt like, and this is how I see it now, is like the liberal kind of media and art space and a lot of the newspapers and stuff, they would often, especially when it came to like commercialism, I would say it's more commercialism, which is the problem, which is like, you remember when Kendall, was it Kendall? Who's the one who come up with a Black Lives Matter and gives him a can of
Kendall Jenner.
Yeah,
and when she was like, like it was look at her face, she was like,
yeah. And I remember seeing that. And probably a leftist would have also been like, that is fucking insane. But bearing in mind,
Malcolm X just should have been like,
just a can of Pepsi would have done it. Didn't need the speeches. But yeah, it was like, I remember seeing that. And so what you're actually seeing is, and this again is more of a critique on capitalism. It's like you're seeing commercial like businesses are kind of analyzing what they think is the political space, seeing that there's feelings in the atmosphere and trying to think, well, how do we position ourselves to profit from this?
How can we like put our product at the center of it? Whether it's Mattel and Barbie or Pepsi.
Yeah, true. And it's sort of like they try and find, how do we position ourselves in a correct way? And who's writing these fucking scripts? It's probably, if it's marketing, it's some kid out of fucking college who did like, I don't know, a bit in marketing. They probably don't have some nuanced understanding of like Black Lives Matter, or, you know, blah, 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 blah. They probably don't understand it to that degree. They're just trying to say, look, the kids are kind of talking about how black people have it fucked. Let's try sell them some shit. And then you go, okay, all right, let's fucking give Kendall Jenner a can of Coke, Pepsi. And so like, and you're right to be annoyed at that. When I was on the right, it was shit that was the case. That was a horrible like message. And you're seeing that, and the right are telling you that is the left. They're never going to say that is capitalism, that is commercialism, that is trying to hijack these movements and trying to profit from them. It's the same as I think Coca-Cola did in the 60s. They did when the hippie movement was happening.
I want to teach the world to
exactly
sing.
the same thing. Like, it's like comical that it was Pepsi this time, but it was Coke.
Yeah.
It was like, the hippies are like fighting for people's human rights, and they go, how can we sell some cans? And then so they like took the famous hippie song, I want to teach the world to sing, innit? And it was like, I don't know, what did they change it to? It was like to drink Coke or something. Like, it's so insane.
Harmony.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Insane.
But I remember there was like a girl with like it's like pigtails like that or something,
yeah.
and they're all like looking out into like the future and the sun
just this
together, and then like
optimistic view that Coke will do it. It will save it. But it's like, that is obviously now, like from hindsight, a critique on commercialism and capitalism. It's not that these people are the thought leaders of leftist thought. They're some marketing executive that's seeing a trend and trying to sell some shit. So there are critiques. I didn't like the Gillette advert. That stuff pissed me off.
What was the Gillette advert?
Best a man can be. And it was like, it was this sort of saying that men were toxic because they, and you know, again, it's a very complicated topic. There are things like adolescents handled it much better. But like Gillette were trying to say that young lads wrestling on the ground is inherently awful and toxic. And it's like it was all this row of like dads barbecuing saying boys will be boys, boys will be boys. And it's just lads wrestling. Like, you know, lads can wrestle. If one starts bullying the other one, you step in, you stop it, you say that's too far. There's a playful barrier where it's okay. And you understand your limits on your body, on like how to treat people. But like, yeah, it was this bad handling of very complicated topics from commercial interests that were trying to sell some shit that would piss me off, because that's my interaction with like the world through media, like, you know, as someone on the right. And then I guess that's like media, but then in real life, I would see stuff where I remember having some argument. I must have been on a night out or something. And God, I begrudge thinking about right-wing Jimmy back in the day on nights out with a few beers, and someone starts saying about feminism. God, because we love a debate when we're drunk. But
yeah.
And like, I can't remember exactly what it was. Actually, no, this was fucked. There was like two girls just sat like smoking. I sat down, went on my phone, and I cannot remember exactly why, but she just got mad at me. And then we had an argument, and then she started saying like about male privilege.
What, for like sitting too close? Or?
I cannot remember, honestly. I think it was someone came and dropped a drink, and it was like a messy, like, you know, sort of weird, I don't actually know what it was. But like, we just had an argument, and then she started throwing like the feminist card. And so again, she's just a drunk girl who's pissed off at something. And she's like shouting about feminism or something. And then so my interpretation, I walk away from that interaction, look at what the feminists are like. And so, yeah, I guess it's like just unfortunate and bad depictions of it in my life. And that would have happened like maybe once or something like that. But you take that, it's the same as when like someone who is racist now, some black guy's a dickhead to him. And he takes that away like, oh, all the black guys are all dickheads.
Yeah, so suddenly it's like, race becomes very important in this. Like...
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, I've had a million interactions. I'm not walking around in fights with everyone, but like I've had interactions with lots of white people and lots of like...
I feel like I've had a ton of negative interactions, and you know what? They're the problem and not me.
Yeah, exactly. And like, so say, you know, this lady started calling me like a privileged male or something like that. I've had situations where like just an angry drunk football fan was pissed off at me or something like that. And I didn't walk away and go, God, all these football fans, all these men are bad. It's because I've been primed to see the world through this lens. So when I have an interaction that affirms that in my mind, it then makes me conclude that, yeah, this is the problem. So I'm kind of like seeing the world like that. I'm like, yeah, a lot of it's media, to be honest. A lot of it was media because it's...
Well, isn't it like you're learning about the world through a screen and an algorithm which like, you know, you're not in control of, and it's being fed to you to like stimulate certain emotions. And then you've got people that know how to benefit from that algorithm. They curate their content in a particular way. And all of it is sort of bypassing your own awareness, like as a user.
Yeah, it's true. And like, I wasn't, I guess what the algorithms are giving you is like a lens to view the world through. So like, you then step out of that, and then you're now in this picture is in your mind, and now it's like when, as someone who did parkour, you would look at the world through the lens of parkour. So when you would walk around a town, you'd be like, oh, look at that, that's an amazing gap, that's an amazing this, that's amazing that, because that's like your frame of reference for life. If you're going out like on YouTube, etc., and it's giving you a frame of feminism, you're going to start being a little bit overly aware, and definitely racism. They start becoming overly aware. They go, God, lots of shops with like different fonts and like, you know, you start seeing it when you're looking for it, and I think it reaffirms it. And I don't know. Yeah, it's. I would say the algorithms in a way gave you the thing, and I remember as well, like, you know, if I'm thinking what's pissing me off, I'm not getting pissed off at my boss, and even though like, or maybe I am, but because I'm not, say, watching like anti-capitalist stuff, I'm not looking at the job I'm in and being like, this is quite exploitative, this is quite bad, so I'm like just pissed off at work for the fact that it is work and whatever. I'm not thinking about it from this frame of having an understanding of like, say, capitalism or something. But because the content I was consuming was like making me aware of like feminism or something, I'm going to start seeing that in everything,
and then that becomes the trigger, even if it's not the cause.
Yeah, and you start to see it like too much in everything. Have you ever seen that list which was like woke games list or something? Do you remember this?
What was on the woke games list?
It was like, it was actually sad, because it had basically all of the best games ever made were woke. And it was like, there's some bro made a fucking Excel spreadsheet, that's what they do with their time, and listed every game. And it was like quite a comprehensive list. And it was almost like an actual analysis of the whole games industry and where you might see some Marxist feminists. It was almost academic in a weird way.
Was it like from the history of games or just like contemporary ones?
It was like all games. I'm pretty sure.
Was GoldenEye on there? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I wonder. But like games that you would think were like classics, I think even like Assassin's Creed, or like they'd be like, oh, it's got feminist undertones or something like that. I don't know.
I thought brown people, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of forced diversity.
Yeah.
There's a lot. But it's like, that.
San Andreas, GTA San Andreas.
Yeah, but it was like sad because, and I do notice this, it's like it becomes sad because you stop enjoying the modern world, and they make it hard for you to enjoy the modern world. Like adolescence, fundamentally, I don't know what you guys' opinion, it's at least good to watch. It's at least
I thought it was beautifully written.
Yeah. It's like a piece of art. Like it's fucking upset the shit out of me. But it was like a really good piece of art. But for these people that are so in that right-wing space, they can't enjoy that.
They're like, why did you make the kid white?
Yeah, but they can't enjoy it because he's white. Because like to them, that's this is the I don't know, this is the fucking
anti-white agenda.
Yeah. And so and I remember this feeling. It was like you were sort of unable to enjoy life now because you had been given such a toxic framework to look through the world at, that everything reminded you of it. Because these things exist, black people exist, fucking women exist, like they're gonna be everywhere. And so like you now are so tuned to it that you get pissed off all the time. And if you're sat there when adolescence has come out and you're like upset at it and you can't watch it as just a piece of art, that's actually quite a sad thing. You can't enjoy the modern world. Like you can't enjoy the world that you actually live in. You can fantasize about the past and whatever, but you can't enjoy it. And they're driving that. It's quite sad. Like that's quite a sad thing.
I mean, there's so many directions I want to take this conversation in, and like, okay. First is like to play devil's avocado, as they say.
Oh, I like that.
To play the devil's avocado. Some people say, well, that's what the left is like. You see transphobia and everything. You see racism and everything. You see patriarchy and misogyny and everything. And it's you who's primed to see harm and attacks on your own identity in the modern world. I mean, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, and this is the thing where I've entered the left, and I guess through the way that I've done it, I've really not interacted with that. I know it exists, that kind of like, what do they call it, like very intersectional sort of like left. I don't really interact with it. I don't know it. They don't watch my videos or they don't say much. So I don't really have my only knowledge of that is right wing telling me that exists. And to be fair, like I listened to what you were saying. I was like when you did the one or I can't remember, when your book came out recently, you did like a really good podcast with someone and you explained that story of like, I don't know, you did some meeting and like you couldn't get through like the meeting. Because,
someone said that you're all a bunch of fucking cunts, and then people are like, that's created an unsafe space for people of colour, and I was like, that's not.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it exists, but I guess I haven't interacted with it. So it's like, I don't really know how powerful it is, but maybe it's more powerful in those academic worlds. And I guess there is that element of their, I would say, maybe there's different types of people. There's political people and there's academic people. Academic people give the arsenal. They should give the, and then political people should maybe take those and think, how do we apply it in the real world, perhaps? I don't know. I don't want to talk on that because I don't know enough about it, and I haven't actually interacted with anything specific. But like, yeah, I don't know. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on that. So do you think that force is like a big, prevalent, powerful force, or it's just like weirdos, like some weirdos? Or
What I would say is that like it's prevalent online, but that's also because the way in which content is promoted and like fed to you is that I think stuff which stimulates emotions of outrage always gets a bigger hearing, and then that creates an incentive to create more content which is like that and does that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that like I think that we've been scared to identify behavior which is a bit toxic, dysfunctional, anti-solidarity. But I think maybe because we're scared to close people down or make them feel that like they're being attacked because of their identity, very disruptive and perhaps unhelpful individuals have gotten too much power. So I don't think that it's because there's this huge majority of the left which behaves this way. I think it's a product of arts and humanities graduates like me who've been trained to pick apart language, doing that in every setting, because if all we've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But then also when you do it, because people are a bit cowed and worried about being called sexist or racist or whatever else it might be, they don't want to say like, this isn't what we're here to do.
It's not helpful right now.
This isn't helpful. And so I think that's the dynamic. But I think what happens on the internet is important because, Do
you think maybe I don't know, maybe it wasn't counterbalanced with people? I just didn't really hear many very populist left type of voices until like Gary really popped up, like who had a big like impact. So perhaps the voices that existed on the left, just it was those, maybe like there wasn't someone to counterbalance it, and so it felt like, well, that's all we're talking about, or maybe they're bigger than what they are.
I also just think that like, because the Corbyn movement was massive, like, and again, like maybe it's just that few years between us is like actually like really long in political time because of what happened.
I think things are, I would say,
because I was like 25 when like the sort of big 2017 election result, right? That was my like kind of like springtime for socialism, like and you'd have been what, 22, so I think that makes a difference. But like that was a time where we were talking a lot about deprivation and poverty, but I think maybe what we weren't doing necessarily was like we're focusing on like people who were very marginalized and suffer a lot because of that marginalization. So they're benefits claimants who couldn't get their benefits money and they died of starvation and other health issues, right? We talked about that a lot. We talked a lot about people who were at a really acute end of suffering, but there was maybe a bigger experience of class, perhaps of like exploitation, just like everything's getting a bit shit, which like maybe you're not the most vulnerable person on the planet, but you're still suffering a lot. You're still like, society's not serving you, and maybe we couldn't quite tap into that quite enough. Maybe our instinct was a little bit more towards the very, very marginalized.
And I do think, like, I don't know, maybe I'm putting too much on the right, but like I think there was that business incentive of the right to pick out those extremists, or like, don't want to call them extremists, sorry. There's probably a potential that the right was picking out people that they knew could be considered very like
polarizing,
divisive, and that's who they would focus on. And because they often have control of all like the big media platforms, etc., and because like again in that ecosystem of like outrage sells just through algorithms, through just even who you're going to book for your TV show, you're going to like try and get the ones that are going to stir up some
good TV.
Yeah. And so it's like perhaps that mechanic, that sort of I guess like market mechanic within media is also part of what plays into it, that they're going to start choosing to speak to that person more. So that makes that movement bigger, because I kind of analyze like I guess the woke thing as sort of the right the powers that be trying to disrupt the Occupy Wall Street kind of movement, that solidarity that was growing.
You can't be the 99% anymore. You've got to be 1% of this and 5% of this.
And I think they played into it. Think tanks, all like PragerU, like Daily Wire, like fucking billionaires were like funding these specifically online right-wing pundits, and they know what they're doing. They're smart as fuck, and I guess the left wasn't equipped well enough to like know how to respond to this. And so they were specifically forcing the left, because they start now going at, oh, look at this person who said some, libs of TikTok, look at these crazy, like, I don't know, fucking 18-year-old talking about some really complicated thing that she doesn't understand.
There's a David Horowitz strategy paper about exactly this.
Oh, really?
Exactly this. You should,
I'd really like
try and get your hands on it. There's bits of it extracted, and it's printed in a book called Hate Monger, which is about Stephen Miller. It's really, really, really good.
Interesting. Because I really see that's how I analyze what happened. It was like, the right, through their think tanks, people like Charlie Kirk, I mean, like manufactured in a fucking lab, came in and saw what would be divisive, and they just focused in on that, lasered in on that, and then it's that self-fulfilling circuit or whatever. I was trying to sound smart there, it didn't come out. But it's like that thing of like, then what gets rewarded? Well, if you talk about this topic, you're going to now get in an argument, and you're going to now get invited on this show, or you're now going to be, your YouTube video will pop up.
Well, they're good at picking the fights they want to have.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, that's why it's so interesting seeing how they're trying to handle Gary at the moment.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating, because they've spent the last 10 years trying to like court the white working class. They went from the 2000s, where the white working class was the scum of the fucking
Chavs.
earth.
You called them chavs.
Yeah. They went from doing that in the 2000s. Now they're the victims of multiculturalism. They're the left behind, they're the forgotten.
The same fucking journalists, who called them chavs, and there was one guy called James Delingpole who called them lard-gutted slappers. Then about 10 years later was like, isn't it terrible, the white working class has been left behind? The same fucking people.
It's so visible. This is what pisses me off about conspiracy theories, man. It's like there's so much obvious, real, provable conspiracy that you could look at. You'd be like, that is fuck. And then they're focusing on, my mate told me that viruses don't exist the other day. I'm like, bruv, please. Like,
viruses?
He doesn't believe in viruses. I'm sorry, I don't even want to perpetuate that message, because it's insanity. But anyway, he told me that, and I was like, oh, I didn't want to engage in the debate. I was like, mate, just look into this. Look into like, I don't know, think tanks. It's interesting at least, right? That billionaires seem to really like. I was like, look into that. But anyway, yeah, that's insane. But I think where were we just a second ago?
We're just talking about the white working class and Gary's economics and...
Yeah, so they've just spent the last 10, and I'm doing a little video on this at the moment, that's what's on my mind. But they've just spent the last 10 or so years, they went from like, someone said it really well. They said, it ends with lionize. What's the other one? So it was like, they went from like ostracizing them to like lionizing the white working class now. And that's a problem, because it's a kink in the armor. Because when Gary comes along, they can't do the class thing on him anymore. And they try to, and they get pushed back. If you see him on Twitter, they start like, I've seen it a few times where they'll take clips, or not even clips, they'll like take a picture of Gary, and then they'll write his argument really dumb English.
Yeah.
And like, read the fucking rule. Like, as advice to the right, I don't know if I should give him that. Don't do that. Because if you're trying to fucking keep the white working class, and now you're like insulting them, you're fucking yourselves over. Like, your base, you're now insulting your base. And I think that's a problem for them, because he talks to that. He is what they're trying to lionize and make the victim, and he's saying, actually, no, it's not the migrants, it's the billionaires. Like, and that's a real kink in the armor for them, because either they go down the whole route, and they can't even like. It's a real struggle for them, because he's a trader. They can't criticize his job because they love traders.
And he's got the insider knowledge, right? So it's not he's coming at it from, well, I read about it in a book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, he has the credentials. Also, trading, it's like the banking sector. They're fine with that. They're not against the banking sector. So they can't say, oh, he's like a liberal arts student, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, he's one of us. But he's actually not one of us, because he's like a working class person, and we can't insult them anymore, because we need them on our side right now, because we need to say it's the migrants' fault. And yeah, it's kind of interesting seeing that like chink in the armor that they have at the moment. And
well,
that's,
the attack line is he's not as successful a trader as he says he was.
And I don't think people will give a shit about that. Like, it's
also like they'll be like, oh, it wasn't this many million, it was that many million.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'm going, so everything he's saying about billionaires is wrong because what his credentials are, I don't know if I believe that take, but if like his credentials aren't 100% exactly, he's not number one, he's number two or something like that, I don't think they're going to go, oh yeah, well, everything else he says must be completely incorrect, because what he is saying are truths. It's not like he's presenting like just vague feelings and stuff. It's like people can like analyze their life. And that, well, exactly what Gary said is kind of true. We're all being priced out of our communities and blah, 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 blah.
Well, one of the things it does is that it gives you a method of looking at the world. And the bit which I find myself quoting again and again is like, well, if you want to really know how the economy is doing, go outside and look at what's happening on your high street.
Look at like adverts. That's when I was on the when I was on the tube here, I was like, it's all credit stuff and it's like trading 212 adverts and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you can see the
get rich quick.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, that's so interesting. Like there was a thing I did in this video where I can't remember if I've even put it out. I think I did. It was like, I went through like the self-help thing, and it was so interesting seeing this dip in the self-help market from about the 50s to about the 70s. Because it was like before in the 30s, it was like you needed self-help because it was the Great Depression. So you needed like someone needed to give you a book to try and save yourself. Like it was like the life vest. Someone was throwing them out. But then when life was kind of like we were improving, we could see life was improving. All of a sudden, people are now into like utopian novels and they're into like, the self-help market massively dips. And so predictably, it's almost funny, but like 70s, the self-help market starts again, and it just goes from there.
Like OPEC oil crisis comes in, and it's like, oh, I guess we need some self-help again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so interesting seeing stuff.
But
like
I mean,
that, yeah.
Obviously you've come at it from, you describe it as an alt-right pipeline. There are these messages about masculinity and stuff that you're receiving. I mean, to be honest, one of the things that worries me a bit is that when I look at some of the messages which are being, sold to young women, like it's so fucked. Like it's so cooked. Like there's one side of it which is like soft life, which is the thing that you need as a man who's going to pay for your hair and your nails and rare. And I'm like, you've invented prostitution. Well done. Like, and then there's obviously the trad wife stuff, which like is kind of self-evidently, deranged, right? Which is like, if you just like give up access to a bank account, you're going to be really happy. And it's like, no. But the thing which worries me is that there is a mirror to the manosphere, and it's basically, here is a world telling women how to interact with men, and it just seems so divorced from like real men. And I suppose
I had a bit more like, I thought the women were doing a bit better than us.
We've got some good stuff, but we've got a lot of like, ladies, if he doesn't pay for absolutely everything on the first date, that's a red flag. If he breathes too loud, if you see him drinking milk,
God damn. Wow, what's wrong with milk?
I don't know.
Strong bones.
Apparently you're not supposed to drink milk.
That's a shame, because I always thought like women are sitting there listening to like psychology and like.
Yeah, we've got some.
I've heard. I like over here. My missus listen to.
Esther Perel.
I don't know who it is, but I was like, I made a good point. Start analysing my behaviour. I'm like, yeah. So I was a bit more thinking that women were doing all right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I remember like the girl boss era, and like I've definitely seen a lot of leftists. I've seen a lot of leftists like critique the girl boss era and stuff, because it's effectively it's sort of the same thing as like the self-help stuff for men. It's like the system's fucked. This is the life vest. This is it. Like that. I said this before about like manosphere stuff. It's like, it's true within the framework of dog eat dog capitalism that you need to be a ruthless bastard to survive. So like Andrew Tate is a logical conclusion. He's like, well, that's how you survive. And like, he's been rewarded. He's got financially rewarded. He's got the fame. He's got everything society tells you to have. And so it's like, I don't want that world. I don't think that's the world that we need. I think we can do much better than that. But it's a logical conclusion. So yeah, I feel like the girl boss stuff was that.
Union busting for girlies. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Is that
kind of like?
I wish I need to like research a bit more into. It's funny how gender does sort of play how you interact with the internet a little bit. So I'm quite oblivious to a lot of the stuff on the women's side. Like I know the trad wife thing because my missus, she like loves cooking and shit. So she got really she makes content. She's been called a trad wife.
And she's like, no, I can just cook.
No, I just love cooking. Like my wife is very, very hardworking. She's incredible creative mind. She's like, today she had an idea because Easter's coming up. Ukrainian Easter is like, they celebrate it. It's like a big deal. So she was like, I'll make tons of paskas, these little cakes, like 12 of them, amazing, like done beautifully. And then she'll go out, film it, give it to people and get people's reactions and stuff. And I'm like, that's so sick. And so
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah.
I will eat this
but
cake.
Like, so she sort of tells me about the trad wife world, and she's like, she quite likes Nara Smith, and she says Nara Smith gets a lot of like heat for this child wife stuff. But Nara Smith isn't going like, this is how you should live, women, this is what you need, this is how you won't be happy with it. She's a woman who likes cooking, and she's a business lady who also makes really good content. I don't know if she's come out with like some hot takes or anything.
I've got no idea. I just remember seeing her videos where she's like wearing an evening gown, and she's like, my husband and my kids had a craving for a Cocoa Pop, so I cultivated a rice crop in my back garden.
It's insane. Like she'll go and chop down a tree in Africa. Or I don't know. But like, but her stuff is quite literally an aesthetic thing, and it's like the cooking's cool. But then she shows me the more toxic one. She's like, these people are like saying this is how you need to live. This is like the answer. Women opt out of the system. Blah blah blah. Find yourself a rich man. Blah blah blah. And it's kind of interesting how even that gets co-opted. I don't think like Nara Smith was marketing, like quite smart marketing wise, but I don't think she probably foresaw.
Is there something here about like learning about the opposite gender through online content? Because you mentioned Andrew Tate, and like as a straight woman, when I watch the advice Andrew Tate gives to young men, I'm like, you realize that he's giving you instructions for how to be repulsive.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Like it's not what we like.
Yeah, it's so crazy that it's the thing that it's mad about is the whole like emotionality around women sort of thing. So they try and say this is, and they're so perverted, like the way they like target insecurities. They try and say, your woman will stop finding you sexually attractive if you are too emotionally vulnerable, because it's too feminine, and you need the polarity of masculine and feminine to keep that sort of like sexual polarity. And so they say, be reserved, don't open up to her, don't cry in front of her. And it's like, fundamentally, if you do not connect with your wife emotionally, that will cause her to be unconnected to you and probably eventually sexually turn off from you. Because like that's a big part of sexuality is like emotional connection. I don't know if it's like especially for women, but I believe it's for both of us. But it's a massive part of it. And so if you do the Andrew Tate thing, you will literally cause the thing that you're trying to avoid of her eventually being turned off from you. And it's so sad, because they know the insecurity is, what if you do the hard work, you go and fucking meet the woman, you put yourself out there, you become vulnerable, you do all the stuff, you treat her well, and all of a sudden she falls out of love with you. That's so sad. And so like evil to tap into that emotion and then deliberately attack it and deliberately try and like make you scared of that. Because it's crazy how like emotionally manipulative it is. Like,
I mean, so something which I think we have in common is I feel like we're both wife guys, right? It's like I got married and now it is the center of my identity.
Yeah.
Like I said it wouldn't happen, but then it fucking did.
It did happen.
Like, did it change how you viewed the messages that the manosphere were giving about like, you know, heterosexuality and about women in particular?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I always say, so when I was younger, I was like a nerdy, I don't know, like up until, I'm still nerdy, but like I was definitely very nerdy when I was young. And so like, I'm probably 13, 14, and I'm like, maybe a bit later, maybe like 16. I'm like, how do you like get women to like you? Like, how do you get on a date or whatever? Because I was always like, you know, I was chatting to girls in school, maybe I get a kiss on the cheek, kiss on the lips now. And then I was like, I want to actually meet a girlfriend. So I remember I would end up watching like pickup videos. And it was so funny how different it was even back then. The pickup stuff in like 2012, it had big problems. If you like, I don't know if you knew about Simple Pickup. They were like really sleazy. So
what's that?
They were like these channels, right? There was this thing called Day Game. And it was like,
so we've got like a male video producer who's like me and Ceci are like, we don't know what this is. And Jonah is like, yeah.
It was like you had these geezers, they were called Simple Pickup, and the idea was like there was 3 of them. One of them was kind of like traditionally quite attractive looking guy. The other one was like very kind of nerdy, and I can't remember the other one. Maybe that was the character. He was like a bit forgettable. And they would go out in the streets and they'd have like a camera hidden in a bush. It was like OG. It was like prank content at the same time. And they would do this thing where they were trying to sell this message that you can go and meet a woman anywhere, just be bold, be confident, be yourself, and put yourself out there. It's quite a nice message, just that bit. But because obviously, and it's again how algorithms affect it, they got sleazy, like they got weird. It was like trying to pick up women with like saying sexual things, and it was kind of like a bit gross. Like I made a video where I did a little overview of that period, and I went back. I was like, God, it was worse than I thought it was. Like some of it was fucked. But there was a piece of that community which was quite literally just saying, go and talk to women. Like that's probably the best way of meeting a woman, is to speak to one. And some of it, I would say, like the culture that grew from it became a bit gross because it was like you'd go out kind of like. It's the same as like a guy going out for a club night just to meet women. There is something a little bit predatory about. I don't want to like be misquoted or something.
But then it also makes guys feel like failures, where it's like, okay, the purpose of like your night out with your mates isn't to like have fun, and if you meet someone that's great, but if not, it's fine.
To meet women. And that is like, so I met my wife in a coffee shop doing day game. Effectively, I wasn't going out day gaming or something, but I like just saw her and was like, you're beautiful. I'd love to say hello to you. Can I? And it was like, it was nice. It was beautiful. It was like a little meet cute, you know?
You had a meet cute.
And if I never...
And the fact you can remember it. Like I always say to my husband, like, what was it like when you saw me for the first time? He's like, I can't remember. Like, he's like, but I like you now. Is this good enough? And I'm like, no.
I had my little meet cute. And if I never watched those videos back in the day, I might not have had the confidence to do that. And I can definitely see a lot that was wrong with it. I'm trying to make it clear that I think guys that go out and their whole life becomes to chat to women, and especially when they start learning tricks on how to chat to women, that's when it got fucked. But that was kind of the original messaging, was just be yourself, be confident. But at some point it changed. It like the red pill thing came along where it wasn't be yourself. Do not be yourself. Yourself is a fucking loser. You need to become Mr. Cool Guy. You need to become Mr. Chad. And that's what the image you need to project to women. And by now, they don't even tell you to go and speak to women. They sit on these podcasts where there's like 1-2 blokes and there's 20 women around them, and they just insult the women.
They just berate them.
Yeah. It's like, what are we doing here?
Where do they get these women from?
I think they're all OnlyFans girls.
Be like, there's no amount of money you could pay me to just sit there and be insulted by a man with a podcast mic.
Yeah, they're all OnlyFans girls, and so they go on because then these people that claim they hate them, watching them, will then go and subscribe to their OnlyFans because they're actually, lonely people, and it's just so perverse.
But then you can see how then that feeds, like, it's a self-perpetuating thing again. I can't remember the phrase either, but it's self-perpetuating.
Something. Yeah.
Like, because it's like, all right, you bring these women on, you insult them, they're like, I guess very skimpily dressed, shall we say. They've all got like OnlyFans things. You subscribe to their OnlyFans and then you're like, okay, well, I hate you, but you're also taking my money. I'm giving you my money. Yeah, like, you're inaccessible to me though. And it goes back around and around and around.
And then I've literally, they don't give advice on how to actually meet women. They just complain about the dating world. That's all it is now.
And there's a lot to complain about, but...
Yeah. But they don't do it in the right way. And their conclusions are all wrong. But it's like... it's so strange how it went from the original thing was go chat to women, put yourself out there. And again, as I say, there was problems with that, but there was some right advice there. You should put yourself out there. If you think she's nice and you want to be bold and say that you like her, that's like a thing you have to probably develop, because if you're a nervous, young, nerdy guy, you're scared to do that.
But what would you say to those nervous, young, nerdy guys about rejection? Like what would be the advice that you would give them about how to deal with it?
Yeah, it's interesting because if I think back to like that content, that was like a big part of it. It was like building your resilience to rejection. And like, it wasn't come away from it and think that every woman's a crazy feminist now or some shit. That's like their conclusion. But like the whole point back then, it was just like saying, I'm not trying to like glorify this era because I definitely think there was a lot fucked with it, and I keep saying that, but it was sort of like rejection is a key part of life, like, and you need to be okay with rejection because
it's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you, and that's like the thing. I think men, I don't know why, but we really struggle with rejection. Like, it's really tough. I think there is some statistic, and again, I probably heard this on some podcast that might be chatting absolute breeze, but I did hear something about how men would rather go to war than to ask a woman out, and I don't know if that's true, but I definitely double check that. But I've heard that like men fear rejection from women
more than machine guns.
Yeah, literally. And to be honest, I know guys who, when I was in my parkour era, they would like be okay with doing a front flip over a roof gap, but then if there was a girl that was nice and he wanted to ask her out, couldn't do it. Paralyzed by that fear. Like, the rejection is tough. I don't really know why. I think a lot of it's like shaming in school, like especially when you liked a girl in school. It was like, and I don't know if this is like an British cultural thing, but like there is this strange pressure and like judgment around that. And
nothing more embarrassing than fancying someone.
I've said this on another podcast, but I was called gay for liking a girl. And so I'm like, well, how do you win in this scenario? And so like there was,
fellas, is it gay to be attracted to a woman?
Yeah, and you know what I think it was? It's because a lot of time, as you get older and if you hang out with the right guys, your mates will support you in, say like you're single. They'll be like, yeah, go chat to him if you've got good mates around you. Go chat to her or something. But when you were younger, they would use it as like this opportunity. So you go chat to her, she rejects you. Now he will laugh at you, make you look like an idiot. And then because he thinks it's going to make him get closer to the girl because he looks cool and blah, blah, blah. So I think there's some weird, stuff that happens in childhood around like chatting to girls that I'm really curious how popular the red pill stuff over in like Sweden is, where they've got much more like liberal attitude. When you're young, the attitudes around like talking about sex, talking about this stuff, it isn't taboo. The same with like my wife being Ukrainian. Ukrainian culture didn't have that Victorian reserved era. It was like their religion is more ritualistic as opposed to like moralistic. Yeah. So like they like to do the traditions, do the things, and then you just live your life, and we're not that judgmental on your behaviors, sort of thing. From my understanding, from what she tells me. And so
you're like my ethnography of one.
Yeah, exactly. That's my sample size as one person. But it seems though that those cultures don't have such baggage around like sex and talking about it, and I wonder how that. I still think we have a lot of overhangings from that Victorian Christian attitude.
It's the most English thing about me.
Yeah, really?
The most English thing about me is that if someone starts talking about like sex in like a group setting, I'm like,
yeah, you get weirded. Yeah,
I can't relax.
Yeah, and I think that is a British cultural thing because I don't think it exists everywhere.
And they say that we don't assimilate. Look at this.
Yeah, I'm scared of sex as well.
Like, I'm terrified of sex. I mean, the How I Escaped the Alt-Right Pipeline video, it went super viral, almost 2 million views. Was it a surprise to you how successful it was?
Yeah, I don't know when I've said this, but I made that video because I needed to do 3 videos in a month, and a sponsor needed me to do another video. And I was like, shit, I can't write another script. It was like near Christmas or something. I was like, I ain't got time to write a script. I'll just do this one off the top. Like, sort of, I did write a framework, but it was kind of like I wrote that in probably half a day or a day or something, when usually I'd spend a few days. And so I kind of just recorded it. I thought it wasn't going to work because I'm not sure how interested people are in me as a creator, because I'm not like, I've started to put my personality more out there and in my videos. But fundamentally, my videos are kind of as popular as the topic is, or at least they used to be. They've started to get a bit more consistent now. But because that one was such a just, this is about me, I didn't think it would do so well. And then when that one did really well, I was like, it kind of made fucking sense. Like sometimes you can often like post-rationalize why something did well because you understand like the context. In the time you don't, you just get lucky a little bit. But like, in the same way people say why Tyler Creator did well in this era was because of these things. Like rap was like this, and it was a moment when this happened. I would say that video was just like, it was around the whole Donald Trump thing. Andrew Tate's kind of come and a little bit gone. There are people moving away from the right. The right has changed as well. Like Jordan Peterson was not the same guy in 2018 that he is right now. All those figures that we grew up on have kind of like gone in a weird, very culty, Trumpy way. And even though we might have had sympathies towards Trump, we can see that it's going in a different direction now. So I think there was a certain amount of people that were kind of coming out of it. But at the same time, the right was becoming popular in like a mainstream sense. Yeah. So, and I don't know if, it's why I always say I'm a fucking hipster, I admit it. But it's like, I do think there is this thing that like nerds find something and they, before everyone else, hipsters then jump on it. And then it goes mainstream. Then it goes mainstream, and then the hipsters come off of it. Yeah. And then everyone else comes off it. I do think, and I'm not trying to make it sound just so superficial like that, but I do think there's an element where you sort of learn about something, you're maybe early to a thing, and then as your knowledge changes or deepens, you maybe move away from it or whatever. But that mainstreamification is kind of weird. That I do think there has been this move away from the right on certain areas. Whilst at the same time, Trumpism has become bigger generally, I would say.
I mean, is it weird, I guess maybe not just making content, but becoming a role model for other young men? Like, because I sometimes get it where people will email me with questions about their life and what they should do. And I go, I feel like such a fraud because I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always been a bit of a prick, like always. Like I give people advice.
That's going to be the title of this video, by the way. Always been a bit of
like I try and measure how much advice I give. So like I think when I was younger and dumber, I was like a bit too ready to give advice on things that perhaps I shouldn't have. I do like giving advice, but I have become a bit more aware that like things that work for me might not work for you. I think part of right wing thinking, to be honest, is like this sort of absolutism. Like, so, you know, I was quite right wing up until like a certain point in making YouTube videos, and I would always look at how I've worked hard, try lots of different things, and it worked out for me, and so everyone should do that, and they'll be successful as well. There was like an element of that. And so I used to be probably a bit more like easy to give advice. Now I try and like, I don't know. It's difficult. The questions I will get is typically around like people dealing with friends and family that have like gone down like sort of the right wing thing. And also questions about like, what do we do as like a political movement like right now? Like what does I'm sat here watching your videos. I'm sold on the message. What do we do? And this is sort of a thing I've been talking to Gary a little bit about it as well. Is like one of the things is people, and this is great. People want to feel like they can help and do something, but we haven't really settled on what is the exact route yet. And I think that's like, we've got a few years for the next election. So we're kind of like working out what is the strat, what's like the plan, who do we pick, how do we work it out? So we're kind of figuring that out.
Would you ever stand?
I don't think I'd stand, but I've sort of done that same thing, Gary, because I just don't want to be going to Parliament every fucking day to do, like, I like sitting, like, I like going to the gym, I like, you know, doing badminton, I like doing my shit.
Badminton?
I love badders. So that's like middle class of me, they exist. I've been a waitress before. But yeah, I love badminton. But like, I couldn't imagine going to Parliament and shit, but I like what Gary says, which is like, trying to influence the thought. And I think like my skills are in like storytelling, and just like thinking openly and honestly about stuff. I think that's where my skills are. I don't think my skills would be in the nitty and gritty, although I do find myself like sort of thinking up manifestos and like sort of a little bit, but I would rather someone else take that lead. I would rather Gary do it, and I'd rather like I need to think about Mick Lynch, but I feel like a Mick Lynch or one of those lot.
You know, I always say this, which is that the strategist and the figurehead are usually two different people.
Yes, I have a bit more of a strategic mind.
Maybe you should be the Keith Joseph to Gary's economics Margaret
Yeah,
Thatcher. Do you know what I mean? And that's a terrible comparison.
But I feel like Gary doesn't want to do it, so, and he should do it. He is definitely the guy. But yeah, I don't know. It's at the moment, it's like I think there is a growing like movement that started growing about understanding, I guess, wealth inequality and class and things, and it's becoming bigger and bigger, which is awesome. And lots of people are like want to be active. But yeah, I guess it's finding the figures, finding the movement, and finding like what to do, because like we have like 3 options, which is either you do like some mass sign up to the Labour Party and try and do what movement, I guess, kind of Momentum kind of did, which is like, yeah, just change the Labour Party. But the Labour Party brand's quite fucked at the moment.
Also, man, like when Momentum came along and Corbyn came along, like Peter Mandelson like came out of his coffin and was like, not on my fucking watch.
Really?
Like he's not
That's
letting
what
that happen
about
again.
Labour. It's like it's almost too far gone.
They'd rather burn down the whole party than let the left take it over again.
Why? I don't get it. They're not doing a good job. I don't get it. And then the other option would be, and I'm the only one that says this, so take it with a pinch of salt, is like Lib Dems, get Ed Davey to fucking apologise for austerity, admit he was wrong, admit they were wrong, and explain the problem. Because the big thing at the moment is like, someone needs to take accountability for what the fuck we did and explain to the people that fundamentally on like a ideological route that like austerity and neoliberalism isn't working out the way we thought it would. Like mass privatization hasn't worked out how we thought it would. We were wrong. We're sorry. Someone needs to do that.
Red Ed Davey.
I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I am purely looking at it from like a aesthetics point of view. I think he has a good personality, and like he has been saying some of the right things, but whenever I say that, people point out like 20 things that are like, that he's one of them. Like, but I don't know. I like that he's a bit more aggressive and assertive against like Trump and stuff like that. He's had some things about wealth tax or like taxing rich people and stuff. Like he's got some of it, and like the route is there for them, because like although the Conservatives and Lib Dems did austerity, Lib Dems just from a purely like aesthetics point of view, they didn't really. You don't tie austerity to Lib Dems. I know a lot of left wingers will, but in public imagination, you think of Conservatives. You don't really think of Lib Dems that much. Labour have now fucked it, and Lib Dems have kind of got, and I think you can see it in the polling that Ed Davey's like becoming a bit more popular. They haven't got the baggage that the other parties do, but you'd have to fucking fundamentally coup them and completely change their party. Like they're yeah. So anyway, that's an avenue.
Do you know what their strategy was in the 2024 election?
him do stupid shit on it.
No, they made a map of which places had a Gales bakery, and they were like, "That's a Lib Dem target."
Their coffee's not
You're like,
good baked goods, but
good baked goods, but
stick to the baked goods.
But I mean, I'm
That's so funny.
but it's real. It's real. They had a Gales bakery strategy, which maybe contrasts with Reform, who are like, all right, deindustrialized, working class. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would it not? I mean, this is my provocation. I'm not saying something that I believe. I'm just saying some shit.
Yeah, shooting the shit.
I'm just shooting the shit. Is that like maybe what you would want is like, well, Reform at least are speaking to working class people. Like, you know.
That's what I mean. You need to fundamentally change Lib Dems. Like, I'm not saying what they're doing. I'm just saying, like, I like Ed Davey as a personality, and I don't think politicians are particularly, like, deeply held ideologues. I think they're just, like, they'll kind of go with what's working. And
I see you've met David Lammy as well.
I think, like, yeah, I don't know. I reckon if there was enough pressure, because you can see that he's like he's stopped being a bit populist. That's what I'm saying. He's being a little bit populist. And then the third option would be Greens, which politically and like their actual perspectives are kind of like pretty sound from what I've read. But they get a little bit of kickback from their NIMBYism. I think that a lot of people say they like shoot down like building green shit, which is kind of insane. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard. They just don't have the figures and the faces, but I think they're aware of that, and I think they're trying to do something. I don't know, like, I saw one thing of, like, some geezer at a pub saying some Green Party stuff, and he was saying, like, we're not worried about the boats and the shores, we're worried about the yachts, or something like that. And it was like, I know what they're trying to do, and it isn't, like, there yet, it isn't as powerful, but the ideas are right. And the Green Party, again, doesn't have the baggage that any of the others, even if left-wingers don't really love Lib Dems. But yeah, they need like more charisma. And I don't know, I think they should repackage the whole green shit. Like, I think they need to make green technology, like, and the push for renewables to be a topic on sovereignty and like ending wars, and like explain again, you'd be like, look, we've been engaged in endless wars over oil, and like it's fundamentally like every crisis tends to stem from something to do with oil. If we just had some more sovereignty over our energy supply, we'd be less like controlled by outside forces, and we'd have a bit more sovereignty. And that's like messaging wise, that's quite a good, again, this is what I was saying about take some sort of right wing
it sort of it cuts through both left and right.
Exactly, because it's true. And it's like, but when you start saying about, I don't know, end climate change, although of course it's like we need to do that, it doesn't have the same immediate feeling for like your average voter and sovereignty over, like, you can see Russia have invaded Ukraine, you can see all this shit popping off, and they're quite aware that oil prices have fucked up their cost of living. So it's like, if you sold it, instead of being like, you know, we need to save the planet and the fishes and the turtles, which, you know, I like turtles, but like we need to like talk about sovereignty over energy and how it would affect your cost of living, and how by not being tied to these insane people so that we can power our country, it's probably better for everyone.
In a way, the Greens should be less green coded.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they've got the right stuff in them, but they just need their messaging needs to be fixed, I think. Yeah.
Final question. You know, you've had some pretty unique perspectives, right? You went from a state school to a private school, from the alt-right pipeline to being someone who's describing themselves on the left and pushing for a wealth tax. You know, is there a danger that one day we're going to get a How I Left the Left video?
I was going to announce it now, actually.
Oh, God.
I was going to do it. I think why I don't think that would happen is because my understanding of the left was from a lack of actual understanding of it. It wasn't from, I just felt like it was different or something. It was more that I understood the right, experienced my life, saw the world around me, and then I started to learn about left-wing attitudes. I started to understand more. It would be hard to now go back and understand less, if that makes sense. So it's like, I learned about, like, a key thing in my mind was understanding like the post-war period, like understanding Keynesianism and understanding what happened and how that created what the right wing would call the golden age of capitalism. That understanding something that in my mind as a right winger was like, I was always better back in the 50s and the 60s, back when, you know, men were men.
Understand big men were hard.
Yeah, exactly. And back, like, understand that why the world was better then was because of left-wing economics is like kind of like, and so like what it is has put me onto the left is literally understanding more. So it's like putting a genie back in a lamp. I can't imagine, like, I would have to fundamentally, something would have to happen for me to believe that the 50s and the 60s would not have been as a result of Keynesianism, which there are people that try and say it, I don't know. And like, I don't know, it would be a case of me having to, it's I don't know, it's like once you've seen it, it's really hard to unsee it because it feels like more knowledge, not less. Whereas, I don't know, right-wing takes are very reductive. It's all like everything. Yeah, the other one would be like culture analysis as opposed to like economics analysis. Like, so my understanding of, I don't know, chavs or like criminality would have been bad people make bad decisions because they're bad. But once you understand that there was literally a very well-documented process called like blah, 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 of like the council estates, how the council estates started to get...
So they got like decanted.
Yeah.
They
is it residualization? I think they call it residualization, which is quite a gross word to talk about humans because it's saying that the residual of humans.
Oh yeah, they're like a sort of like,
Yeah.
scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Exactly. But it was like the policies that created the decline of the council houses created the chavs, and that created the cultural problems. And it's like, then you understand stuff like, I think it's like called strain theory, which sort of takes the idea, I guess, the right-wing idea is that everything's culture and ideas and attitudes and beliefs. But it says that, if I'm not saying, I'm not quoting the wrong thing, it would say that like economics would be the main original driver. When there's deep inequality and deep problems like that, that will then create cultures within the situation, I guess, within society that become negative. So if you make deep inequality and then you position, I don't know, rich people 10 minutes down the road from very poor people, and then they can see that their lives are very different, and there's like increased urbanization, there's more opportunities for like criminality to occur, and there's so many factors to it that once I've started to understand why criminality occurs, it'd be very hard to go back to an analysis that, oh no, they're just bad people.
Yeah, people are just bad.
Yeah, it's like, because I feel like I understand the story of, from like the war to like now, of why and how things went the way they did. And the right-wing take is always people are just getting worse all of a sudden. And it's always like, I never understand why. Like, and the stats and the data never really match up. They're like, people are earning less because they're lazier. But then you're like, but the unemployment rate is like very low. It's like, and it's, I don't know, there's just so many things where you're just like, with more knowledge, it becomes really hard to believe these sort of reductive takes. So yeah, I would find it hard, but maybe give me 2 years.
Look, once you go Marx, you never go back. Yeah. Like, it doesn't rhyme, but it is fucking true.
It should rhyme.
Jimmy the Giant, Kieren, thank you so much for joining us on Downstream.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Really nice to meet you, and I appreciate what you do.
Is that a Brian Blessed jumper, by the way?
No, it's a Ukrainian brand.
Oh, okay. It's Blessed, not... look, I just think it's your love of Brian Blessed.
Yeah, a little bit, No, Ukrainian. Big up the Ukrainian. Slav Ukraine.